Morning and welcome back to the Wildlands.
We're back in the garden.
And in tonight's episode, apart from a lot of gardening, it's all about irrigation and getting ready for the summer and or for a possible drought, having learnt what we did last year when there was a horrendous drought through the summer.
So we get our reservoir pond lined with the help of lots of friends.
We get a drip irrigation system in, which I know last year was something that was exciting a lot of you, and a lot of you were advising us to do so. That is now in, and we show you where we put it and how it works.
We put up some shade material in the garden to shade some of our more tender plants.
And I'm really excited because I can show you the banana circle, and I plant that up with bananas.
And I get some other plants and bits and pieces out in the garden.
And your sweet corn.
Sweet corn!
Woohoo! So enjoy tonight's episode. From a few of our previous episodes where we've been building the pond. So we had Digger Dave in, you remember, a couple of months back, and he dug us a massive hole, which we then calculated was around 100,000 litres. So today we've got a lot of our friends over and we're going to get the lining in and see if we can get that filled up with water by the end of this episode. So let's go up to the pond and see how we get on lining it. How many times we've run the small pump. We haven't been able to use the big pump yet, so I'm going to plumb that in a couple of days when we've got a tap for down the bottom.
Now that the reservoir is full of water, we need to get our drip irrigation pipes run in the garden. It's going to be a big job because the garden is huge this year, but I can't wait to get started and have a go with all the little drippers and spinners and whizzers that we've got. So
last summer we were spending about 3 hours watering, and the whole purpose of our irrigation system is to reduce that time greatly to hopefully as close to zero as possible, so that we have that time available for other gardening excitement.
Yep.
So you're going to show us now how some of the irrigation bits work, aren't you?
I am. Oh my goodness, prepare to be amazed. Today is drip irrigation day. So we've laid out all the different bits and bobs. We got a bit overexcited in Agrologia and decided to try all the different sprinklery things and drippy things and so on. Down at one end there are sticks to hold your pipes in place. Then there are taps, 2 different types. We have different elbows and T-junctions and crossways things to connect the pipe so it can go in different directions in your garden. We have tall drippery things on a stake that squirt out of multiple holes. Then you have thinner pipe, which is like this. And then we've got all the different connectors down here for that. And again, we've got T-junctions and connectors and 4-way crosses. And the idea is that you have a big thick pipe with the water running in it, going around my spiral or somewhere else in your bed. And then you run little sticky things like this out of it, with a bit of the thin pipe going to your plant with a dripper or a spinner or a droodler or one of those on the end to water the plants directly and hopefully reduce some of the watering cans and hose pipe work that we're having to do.
So I'm at the top of the hill on the side of the food forest by our stack of 4 IBCs, and if you remember a few weeks ago when we were talking about the plumbing on the IBCs, I had this extra section with a tap that is for our irrigation system. So we already have one of these fitted on the front of this one, so that gives us 2 systems for 2 separate loops of irrigation down in the food forest. So what I'm going to do now is I've got some 15mm hose pipe which also fits on there here. I'm going to use that to run it down the hill. I'll show you that when it's finished. So you can see from up here that Missy has laid the spiral drip irrigation around her spiral, and she's only just tested out a couple of drippers because she's now going to do a lot of planting and then add specific drippers for each plant. And then on the right you can see on the top of the berm I've laid another one, except that's a different one. That's actually a dripping tube, so every 6 inches it has little drips, and then you can also add separate drippers to that. So for now that's going to keep that berm moist should it require it with a slow drip, and then at every join we've put taps so that we can turn sections on and off.
It's an exciting day today. Finally started putting plants in my spiral bed. I've planned these out during the winter. I made a whole map of where I wanted things to go, which has made this whole process a lot simpler because I can just have a quick look at the map, grab my plants and put them in instead of spending time trying to work out where to do things. So in front of me here we have a little row of sunflowers. They're going to get tall and put afternoon shade on all the plants behind them. Then we've got 3 different types of courgettes, one round, one yellow and one normal green. There's a patty pan squash over there. They're all going to get really big, so they're probably planted too close together, but I want to really fill the space, so I want them to squash into each other. Then over at the back I've added some dill, which will get big and ferny and again cast shade towards the rest of the bed. We've got some basil dotted in around and about. There's a little tomato here which is about this big at the moment, just over here, but that's also going to get huge, so when he gets to about 1 foot high I'm going to build a tomato cage around him to give him some support. I planted basil next to the tomato because they're very good companions. Then we have a little swathe of chickpeas that are going to look fabulous when they're going to get to about this high, and they're going to be all ferny, and you can eat the chickpeas straight off the plant, so that's nice as you walk around the spiral. And then I've put a giant Mexican marigold, Tajit, in the centre, and I'm hoping that's going to get really big and really be a stunning centrepiece to my spiral. And then we've got some other smaller marigolds all the way around the edge, so it should look really beautiful from above. And then over here I'm just preparing to put in my black cumin, otherwise known as Nigella or love in a mist, and that's going to go along the top above these strawberries here, and that gets really big, like this big. It's got beautiful lacy blue flowers, attracts all the pollinators in, and that's as far as I've got for today.
Done in 5 minutes that I went down to the potting shed to get some herbs. So I hope she hasn't damaged the bay. I'll be very annoyed if she has, you naughty girl. Sage, thyme, 3 different types of parsley, 3 different types of basil. Go. New herb garden, all done. You better not be digging it up, young lady. It's not for Sybil. It's got all the basils here. Got marigolds along the front. Got a spray of coriander, different parsleys. We've got the bay at the back. And all that's left to do, I think, is to put a nice long row of sunflowers along the fence. Job done. And next, which is super exciting, especially for me, I can't wait to show you guys, I'm getting the banana circle planted up with the bananas. Cautious about the weather because it has been cold at night, but now I've decided it's time to get them in the ground, so get them planted up and I can show you what the banana circle looks like with her bananas in the ground. It's
all getting exciting in the garden at the moment.
It's really exciting. So let's go down to Banana World. It's a very exciting day today. Today is planting of the banana circle. It's been a long time coming. It's been a few months since I made the circle, so there will be a whole video out with the banana circle from the beginning to its completion. So in tonight's episode, I'm just going to get bananas in and start planting some of the complementary plants that are going to go in the banana guild. So the challenge that I've given myself is, can I grow bananas in the climate here that I can eat? So I've made some really good compost here. So it's made up of 1/3 actual potting compost bought from the garden centre, and then it's made up of a bag of bio fertiliser, which is basically sheep and horse poo that's well composted, and then 2 parts of our own compost made up of horse manure and composted kitchen waste. So that's 2 parts of ours, 1 part of each of the others to make a very nutrient rich compost here, which is what I'm going to plant the bananas in. So bananas like a lot of food, a lot of nutrients, a lot of organic matter. So I'm not only going to plant them in that, but I'm going to spread it over the top. And then bananas must have chop and drop for them to fruit, which is basically as a leaf dies off and a new one is coming through, the old leaf you chop off, cut it up, put it on the surface around the banana, mimicking what would happen in a rainforest. So I'm planting my bananas relatively close based on the fact that some of these could grow to 20 foot, but I'm also going to be closely planting lots of ground cover and other plants to complement them as part of their guild. So that will be in between on the inner side of the berm being this hump. And if you remember from previous videos, this pile of straw is actually 3 foot deep, and it's a rich compost that did get up to 50 degrees, so it's quite composting in the middle, and the idea there is it's the heat and the nutrients from that will also feed the bananas. It's all part of the banana circle, and you can put urine and also grey water in this circle, and the bananas and the carnas and so on will filter that out for you and put it back into the environment in a safe way whilst feeding all your plants. So it's a bit of a win-win. Look at this lovely stuff. So to summarise, our irrigation system is finished. So I'll give you a quick summary because I didn't film very much of it because it's not a very exciting chore, but it's a necessary chore off-grid or in any garden where you want to make your job easier, or if you're in a drought scenario where watering is really essential regularly. So let me just quickly summarise what we've done. So each IBC that is high up, such as these 2 here, have a new black irrigation pipe with a tap, which is down here in this case, and then we have 4 swales and berms. So we've used 4 IBC, 4 singular IBC, 1 for each swale and berm. So each one of these is watering a swale and a berm, And then we have a 5th IBC, which is for Mrs. Swale garden. So each section of the garden has its own IBC, and that's partly due to the volume of watering that we require, and also because we're off grid. We don't have the same sort of water pressure that you'd get in a house, so we're relying on gravity from these higher IBCs. In the case of these, they're high up, and then they're going down this slope towards swale and berm number 1. So we have to monitor the pressure that we're getting on each system, and the more sprayers and drippers you add, the more likelihood of you getting a lower pressure. So you have to keep an eye on how many drippers and sprayers you put on each system to make sure that you've got enough pressure to water that part of the garden in our case. So the food forest is really shaping up. I'll show you some of the drippers and sprayers in action, and also in other activities that have not been filmed. We mentioned it before when we did our trellis build in the middle of the food forest, where we're going to site a lot of sweet corn, tomatoes and so on. We've covered that in a 30% shade material. We had to order that in from Germany because the shade material that they sell at the local farm shops in Portugal is 90% shade material. So if you're going to put shade material up, what that means is the 90% shade material blocks out 90% of the sun, so it's extremely shady, not really ideal for plant growing because it's too dark potentially, unless the sun is moving over the particular bed where you're shading, and then you get sun for part of the day and not for other parts of the day. So we wanted 30%, which, as it implies, that allows 70% of the sun to come through, so it's more of a dappling, and we've covered over that large bed. So now we've put up our shade material.
It was a bit tricky, wasn't it?
It was a bit tricky. It was quite stretchy.
Yeah.
But that's all up. We didn't film it because it's not the most exciting of chores, but it's done, it's up, it's looking great. And it was put up primarily because on one side you're planting sweet corn, aren't you?
Yes. Last year all of my corn crisped because the little sticky up bits with the pollen crisped and the tassels on each of the corn cobs also crisped, so there was no pollination happening. So this year I'm hoping the shade will just be enough to keep them out of the worst of the sun, and then we can have sweet corn.
Yeah, that's exciting as well.
Yeah.
And the other side of the bed is for tomatoes and courgette type things, isn't it?
Yeah, anything, and melons, anything with big, soft, gentle, sort of delicate leaves that needs a little bit of extra protection.
And here we are. So this is the shade material, and it's resting in the middle so that it can blow so it doesn't get caught. So basically we put in 4 2.5 metre posts, 2 at the front, 2 at the back. We already had these ones. We've extended the middle rather attractively here and here, and we wanted to do that because we wanted to still be able to walk under it, and also the posts, as you can see, are around our paths, particularly at the back where the post actually goes over the path. You can see this one is on the left side of the path. So we continue up there, we've got to pin up our asparagus, which has fallen over in the wind there. So this whole bed, Miss is going to put sweet corn out in here shortly. So we'll come back to this later and show you her sweet corn going out. And then we can hope that this year with our shade material that we get lots of lovely corn to eat, which would be lovely.
Stage 1 of the sweet corn planting is completed. I'm really happy with how they've gone in. The most exciting thing of the whole planting episode was actually finding mycelium. Once I dug down and lifted up the cardboard to put them in, there's mycelium everywhere just underneath the cardboard, which is great. It was also very, very moist under there, which means that swale number 3 has been doing its job. So we have 16 swift sweet corn plants in. They'll give us normal sweet corn on the cobs. We have 5 mini pop sweet corn in. Usually you wouldn't plant 2 different types close to each other because they can cross-pollinate, but after a lot of research I've discovered that actually the only problem with that is that these might be slightly less sweet. So that's fine by me. The mini pop is for popping. So I'm really growing them for Rosie because I think she'll get a kick out of that. And I have another 16 swifts waiting in the polytunnel. They're not quite big enough to come out yet. And they will finish coming a block here and across behind where I'm sitting. And I've got another 8 mini pops that will go in a second row there to make a little block. I've also planted a couple of pumpkins. We've got pumpkin muscard over there, which if you imagine Cinderella's pumpkin, it looks like that. It's sort of big and dark orange with big stripes going around the outside, very beautiful. And pumpkin ficta, which is just an eating pumpkin, maybe a carve for Halloween kind of pumpkin. So that's 2 of the 3 sisters. The pumpkins will cover the ground and go in between all the sweet corn. I'm not going to add beans, the 3rd sister, because I just want my sweet corn to be able to grow without having the beans growing up them. Maybe the 3rd sister will be added next year. So that's it. Lovely sweet corn, growing really well. I'm just going to pop the sprinklers on and get them watered in.
So I'm super excited to share with you the banana circle, which is finally finished, and we've got all the bananas in now. So we've got canas at the front, 2 either side, which are already expanding, but at the very front, Chinese bananas. And then on opposing sides, we've got Museron Sante, which is the red banana. And then we've got 2 pairs either side of one of the rarest canas, Cana Durban, which I will have for sale on the wildlands for those visiting and at markets coming soon. And then here at the back we've got 3 edible or fruiting bananas, which are Musa Canarius, Portuguese sourced bananas. And then at the front, spaced out, we've got 4 alocasia or giant taros, which in theory should get massive. And of course you're aware from previous videos that in the middle the compost is about 3 foot deep. So from the middle bottom of the compost to this level is 3 foot. So that is all rotting away in the middle, staying warm, and that will also help to feed the bananas. And then here, which I nearly forgot, we have 2 lemongrasses that Missy grew for me, which are very good with tropical plants. I've got one here and one on the other side. What's really exciting, which is since I planted the bananas, which is actually about 2 weeks, so with the magic of YouTube we've jumped forward in time, but the bananas, these edible ones, are putting out their babies or suckers at the bottom. So this particular one here's got 6, that one's got a couple, and that one's got a couple. And the way that these function as a provider of fruit and the way that they grow is in the ground you have a rhizome, so like a bulb, and each one of these is coming directly out of the bulb. So this stem here will produce 1 bunch of bananas in about 15 months from when it was planted, and then once it's fruited, this stem is then no longer of any use. It's not viable. They only fruit once. As soon as this stem fruits, you then cut it down at the ground, chop and drop, use it as fertilizer, and then each one of these babies will then in turn become a later fruiting stem. Of this experiment is, can we get these to fruit in central Portugal? Now I say that because although bananas are tropical plants and they like the sun, we're obviously in a very arid and dry situation in the sun here, so it's not particularly humid. So this is why we've got the sprinklers here, to create a more humid environment for them. Plus also we get some very brutal frosts here. Very different to UK frost, because although we went down to -6.9 in the polytunnel according to our digital thermometer, which is very accurate, so whilst that is very, very cold, especially cold for bananas that do not like anything resembling freezing in most cases, the frosts here are very short and brief. So it might be that that's -6.9 was just for a couple of hours, very early morning, whereas in the UK you might have -5 and that might be there for 3 or 4 days or even a week or two, so the ground itself is freezing hard in the UK, whereas here it's harsh but brief. So my plan is to wrap these bananas in the winter because we need to protect these large long stems so that we can get fruit if we're going to get these bananas through a 15-month period from this size to fruiting. So stay tuned over the coming months and into next year and see how we do with fruiting. The very encouraging thing is Joaquim at Sementes de Palvarino, who supplies a lot of our plants and our composts and gravels and so on. He does have a banana in a large pot, and it is outside, but it is under the cover of an open barn, and he has got bananas. He doesn't wrap his, he just leaves it there, and it's fruiting for the first time, so he's got little bananas like that. So if he can do it, we can do it. And we've also watched other channels in America have a similar climate to us, very, very hot in the summer, very cold in the winter, and they're also getting fruiting bananas, so I'm very confident, so it's very exciting. So what do you think of the banana circle?
Oh, I think it looks absolutely beautiful.
It's doing so well, isn't it? And all the corners around the outside and the alocasias and taros, it's going to look epic when they grow up big.
And nice with my little lemongrasses that grew for you.
Absolutely, yeah, they're starting to get quite big.
Yeah.
They're settling in nicely. So as you said earlier, it's all very exciting in the gardens.
Yeah,
and
loads
spring
going
is
on.
wonderful, isn't it? Everything's been planted out, it's looking great, and everything's getting very big.
Green,
Very
filling
green.
up. I've got my tomatoes out in the hoop house. They're getting ready to go up the strings. We've been eating mine too already,
We
haven't
have,
we?
yep. And
So exciting.
it is very exciting. And in a couple of weeks, you're going to do a full tour, aren't you, and show everyone how the plants are looking?
Yeah, it's going to be a great long video. I'm going to take you around swale by berm, by area, by hoop house, by every single, I'm going to name all the plants, show you all of the drip irrigations and the things that we've done so that you get a really comprehensive view of the whole garden.
That's exciting. I'm looking forward to that. I love it. I just sit here for hours sometimes in the evening. Really nice. And what you guys can't really see is on the corner or edge of the screen here, you can see the orange tree, which is in blossom, and the smell is fabulous, isn't it? While
I wish
we're
we could
recording
share it.
now, I wish I could share it. It just smells so great, and it goes all the way up. Beautiful. So I'm so pleased that that has settled in well. And we have some new citrus trees which have been gifted to us on Buy Me a Coffee. Thanks so much for the generosity of people that have been gifting us trees for the food forest on Buy Me a Coffee, and we will do a segment in a very soon video so that we can show you what trees have been given to us and where we've planted them out.
We're not planting those yet though, are we?
No.
We're going to wait until the autumn. We don't quite want to get them in the garden during the summer. It's the wrong season.
It is, yeah. So we've got a couple, we left them in pots, haven't we?
Yep.
So it's all exciting stuff on the wildlands.
So exciting. It's ridiculous, isn't it? We're like, oh, plants!
Yeah.
But plants are great. It's fun.
So, another week or two on the wildlands. You'll have noticed that our videos have not been weekly, and that is a conscious decision on my part, and that's primarily because it takes me 3 or 4 days to edit a video. It doesn't take me the whole day, so basically what I was doing was getting up, gardening for a bit in the morning till 11 o'clock-ish, and then editing from then till dinner time for 3 or 4 days of the week. And I just decided that gardening was just too important at spring, so I had to get out in the garden, get all this irrigation in with Missy. So going through the summer whilst we're busy in the garden, I think our videos will probably be every other week, or maybe 3 out of 4 weeks, depending how quickly I can get edited. You might get longer videos but less videos, so I apologise if you're missing our weekly slot, but hopefully the quality of our bi-weekly slot will make up for that.
Yep. And then in the autumn we can go back to once a week because
Yeah.
it'll all be dull and overcast and
Absolutely,
less
and in
to
fact
do.
the last 2 Novembers we've done weekly vlogs because we have so little to do in November because it's so it's not gardening season. But this coming year we've got building going on, so I don't think we'll be doing daily vlogs for that.
Oh dear.
So thanks very much for watching, and thanks also very much for your support and all your lovely comments. Really appreciate your comments. So nice to read them after we put a video up, isn't it?
Yep. I like following everybody's comments on our Instagram as well, which is just the Wildlanders Off Grid, if you want to follow us on there.
So we might see you next week, or we might see you the week after, but we'll see you very soon for another episode from the Wildlands. Thanks very much, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.